Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of the Artsy Raven, and today our special guest is Gina Carroll. So Gina began writing, blogging, and speaking after leaving a large corporate law practice to raise her 5 children. Her first book, 24 Things You Can Do with Social Media to Help Get into College, helps students show their best selves and tell their own stories online. Dedicated to the belief that everyone has a story worth the writing and telling, she wrote A Story That Matters, a gratifying way to write about your life to help aspiring writers get their life stories written, polished, and shared. She founded Story House, formerly Inspired Wordsmith, a writing, editing, and authorship services company based on the belief that storytelling universe needs more authentic and diverse voices. She is most proud and of the debut Story House publishing effort, Stories Are Medicine, Writing to Heal, an anthology, a beautiful offering from a committed and brave group of Black women writers from Houston and beyond. Gina is a graduate of Stanford University and UCLA Law School, currently living in Houston, Texas. The Grandest Garden is her debut novel. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about why you left this amazing corporate law practice to write.
Because it wasn't amazing.
Oh, no.
So, if you ask around, you'll discover that there are a lot of what we call recovering attorneys.
Oh,
People who went to law school with grand plans to practice, I don't know what, and jumped right in and discovered that they wanted to do something else. That's true for me, primarily because I started having children and didn't stop. But it did allow me to sort of step back and say, okay, so what do I really want to do? I mean, that's a luxury and a privilege. And it's when I was raising my children young that I sort of got back to writing.
yeah, and I'm guessing, I don't believe any knowledge is wasted. I think when you founded Story House, I think your law skills are probably put to use there. No.
Sure. The writing part, all attorneys feel like they're writers, right? We all think that we can jump right into any kind of writing that we want to because we do so much. You do so much writing in law school and in the practice. And so you see a lot of lawyers writing, but you're right. I mean, I use it all the time. My husband runs a business and I help him, and I use it all the time.
So tell me, what led to the writing of The Grandest Garden?
Well, it was a jump for me to go from nonfiction to fiction. I was doing a lot of writing about writing. And I think so what I like to talk about in nonfiction and memoir writing is truth and sort of how tricky and slippery it is in that genre. And I think that bridging over to fiction is a fun exploration of truth too, because all writing, whether it's fiction or not, needs to be based in truth. And so I wanted to try my hand in it, and I sort of had this story kind of knocking around, wanting to be told. So I decided to try it.
So tell me a little bit about what the book is about, the back cover.
Yeah. So it centers around Bella, who, when we meet her, she is a young woman fresh out of college who finds herself on her own. And I say finds herself on her own. She makes the decision to leave her Los Angeles home and go to New York to try her hand at being a professional photographer, both artist and professional sort of event photographer. But something happened in her family life that sort of catapulted her out of her home. And so we meet her at that juncture and going forward to see how she's doing. And we also meet her as right after her 10-year-old birthday, as she narrates how she got to where she did when she left home. So her
Cool.
childhood, in
Okay.
essence.
So one of the themes of the book is dementia and mental illness. Are those themes based on your life experiences?
Yes, and I'm going to say yes and beyond. So while I was writing this book, I was helping a professor and psychologist write her book, which is a guide to help African American people sort of navigate mental health for themselves and their family. And I was coaching her and doing some developmental editing with her through that book while I was writing this one. And I didn't really realize how much that was impacting where this story went. But certainly, I think that is how I sort of landed on that. And also, um, I've had Alzheimer's in my family with my grandmothers in particular. And so it's very much a theme that I'm interested in because I think it's an epidemic right now. It's very, very current.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think in the past, people didn't live as long, so we don't know how they died. But now people are living longer. I think, more diseases are coming
yes.
out.
But I do think dementia is showing up in lots of different ways earlier and earlier. I
Yes.
think the world, the way we live, is challenging for our brains. And I think that we have to really look at that. We have to really think about how we take care of our brain as well as everything else.
Cool. Okay. You
Yeah.
refer to yourself as a story wrangler. What does that mean?
So in my work at Story House, I help other folks get their books written, all nonfiction. Um, I am in no position to help anyone get their fiction book written. Okay, it's too new to me. Um, and I also try to capture folks who don't know they should write their own life stories yet. I believe that everyone should. Um, I think that everyone can write. Will we all write in the same way? Will we all have the same kind of mastery? No. Can we all be Toni Morrison? Absolutely not. Can we all be James McBride? Those are my two favorite people. No, but we can have our own voice and we will have an audience. Our families, the people who come behind us professionally. And so I think our stories are worthy. And I think the storytelling universe is needs some more diverse voices. And so I like to help people get their stories written and to bring them to the idea that they should write them.
Yeah, I think over time, there's been a lot more diverse stories now than while I was growing up. I mean, I would
For
not
sure.
have thought it was possible. Like, I still remember the American Born Chinese was a comic book, and now it's a TV series, and you're like, wow. So,
Yeah, no, it's really happening. And it's happening more in the mainstream. I think it was always happening. Like
mhm.
people were always writing and expressing themselves, but it's starting to be what's being accepted in the mainstream and across all mediums, right? Which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't have thought it was possible. Like last night, a friend dragged me out to see a Korean horror movie called
Really?
Exhuma. I think it was released in Korea last month, and it just came to Toronto, I think a few days ago. And the audience was packed. I mean, it was 80% Korean people, but I mean, it was really cool that we could see, other movies that are not from North America on
Yeah,
Netflix.
I love this movement in horror movies. Like I'm no longer a huge horror movie fan, but there've been, Jordan Peele has brought, Black horror
Yeah.
to the mainstream, and I am loving it. I'm loving the themes. I'm loving the other folks that are doing it behind him. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to have that cultural twist on that genre, right? Like, did you
Oh,
find that?
definitely. Yeah, I think in the past, I think a lot of films, like the American ones, were all just gore. I mean, I wasn't very interested in it, so I was looking at comic books and other types of horror. and I write horror myself, so it was kind of funny. My friend's like, "You're gonna be scared." I was like, "The problem with being a writer is that when you're watching the movie, you're just thinking, okay, where's it gonna go next?' You're
Right.
not, you know what I mean? Like it happens, and you're like, I don't know if I would have chosen that.
Right.
Anyhow,
What are
but
they
it was
setting up
fascinating.
here? And yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
exactly. Like,
right?
oh, ruins everything for us being a writer. But okay, getting back to the Grandest Garden. So it has a generation focus in your book, and you have 5 kids. So what about your experience as a granddaughter, daughter, and mother? How did that sort of make the story flow?
Um, so much of it was influenced by my relationship with my grandmothers. These characters are not my grandmothers by any stretch, but that underlying closeness and that unique sort of relationship that's carved out, that's very different from motherhood, very different from being an auntie, um, was really at the core of the book. Um, and, you know, some of the best sort of coming of age, um, beginning adventure books begin with the death of a parent,
Hmm.
right? I mean, if we're talking about movies, think about Disney, right? Every movie kills off a parent, right? And you're like, why is that necessary? And it's necessary because the young person, if they have a wonderfully happy childhood, what's to push them out of the nest, which is what they've got to do. And so, sort of exploring, so what are other ways that you get pushed out of the nest if you have this sort of idyllic situation? Bella's situation is not idyllic. She's so close to her grandmother's because her family life is not a happy one, not a functional one. But her life with her grandmothers is pretty idyllic. And so, um, she has a hard time coming to the decision to leave the nest. And so I have 5 children, and that's a little bit of an issue generationally.
Now,
How do you leave the nest on your own?
that's true. Yeah, how many are still living with you? No.
It's an ever
Yeah,
evolving situation, ever
true enough.
revolving door situation. Yeah, which is cool, and
Yeah.
that's the way the world is right now. But it is an interesting question to explore, I think.
Now, some of your children are artists, like Bella in your book. So, is it hard to have like a room full of artists together?
Listen, all of them are artists in some way, all of them. And when we celebrate that a lot. There's a lot of creativity in the household. When my husband and I lament that fact, because there's some real challenges to it too, I have to go back to the moment I said as a very young mother, I hope I have one of my children is an artist, because that would be really cool. And like all of them are artistic and creative. Yeah, it's a very cool environment, to have creatives around. It's challenging in the world to be a creative um, and to make your way doing that and that only. Like we all struggle with that. And so, we try to be supportive. Um, but we get exposed to very cool things. My children have long gotten to the point where they're exposing us to way more cool things than we're exposing them to, right? And so that's fun. That's fun about having lots of children, and it's fun about having artists in the house.
Are any of them writers or?
Yes, my oldest daughter is really starting to write. She starts and stops like many of us do, but she's a really good writer. And she is a really interesting thinker. The way she approaches the world and how she sees it, she's really good at finding beauty. I don't know a better way to. If you want someone to curate something that has sort of these beautiful elements of beauty, she's your person. But I've said in my book, A Story That Matters, that I'm a little afraid that all of them are going to decide to write their memoirs. you know, and then we're going to circle on all the things that I did wrong as a mother, because that's what is at the core of almost every memoir. Every memoir becomes a mother memoir in a sense. And so, yeah, I'm hoping nobody does that, but I do hope they do more writing.
Now, you advocate for broader inclusion of BIPOC stories in storytelling. So, have you, in your fiction, do you manage to fit that theme in?
I think so. This book is very Black community themed, Black culturally themed, Black woman themed. You know, it's generation of mothers, grandmothers, um, and how Bella moves through the world as a Black woman. I think as a Black woman artist, I think is very relevant to that point. Um, and and I hope to continue that theme. I hope that more stories come to me that speak to that, because I do think it's important. Even in my memoir, you know, I'm an advocate for inclusion, but I'm an advocate for inclusion of also non-celebrity BIPOC memoirs, right? Like there are non-celebrity folks out there who have incredible stories. And because that genre and the mainstream is so focused on celebrity memoir, I think it's discouraging, and probably they're not being picked up. All these incredible stories that are out there that people aren't writing
I
because they're
remember talking about writing a memoir, and then yeah, my mom was like, "Oh, but you're not a celebrity." I'm like,
like,
"Yeah,
why?
yeah, why? Why would you do that?" So true enough,
But
true enough.
they do, but they
Yeah.
do. And I think that we need more of those.
So what is next for you? I mean, I mean, you're busy running a company, and are you going to do another fiction book or?
I am. So the Grandest Garden was way longer because it included Bella's mother's story. And Bella's mother, throughout this book, is struggling with her mental health. Um, and it has really shut her down. She was not able to mother. She was not able to be a fully functioning part of her own family. And so we see that journey in pieces as they impact Bella in her life. But I had a whole book that talked about why she was, how she was, and how she got there. And I was told, you know what? That's a little too much. And the tone of that book is very different. So pulled it out, and it will be its own book. I'm pretty excited about that. So working on that now, not nearly as much as I'd like to be, but that's coming. Yeah.
So Gina, you're going to do a bit of a reading from The Grandest Garden for us, your debut novel. Just tell us a little bit or context of what you're reading, and then you can start.
Okay. So I've chosen a now chapter and a then chapter, both seminal turning points of the story. The now chapter, chapter 3, Too Early, Too Eager, there's profanity in it, so I'll edit that as I go. It's at the end, so it should be fine. Bella has moved to New York in reliance on an art dealer who sought her out and expressed interest in representing her and showing her work. She's going for her first in-gallery meeting. All right, chapter 3, No Show 1, Too Early, Too Eager. It's February. Bella arrives at the gallery too early, even though she did a trial run the day before her appointment, plotting out the 2-train trip and 10-minute walk from her East Village apartment to Midtown. She is confident with her travel plan, but left extra time anyway to allow time to stop at her favorite coffee spot a block from her apartment. By the time she walked up to the entrance, the line was coming out the door and into the cold. She had expected to stand in line, but not in the cold. So she skipped the coffee, landing her at the gallery with 20 minutes to spare. Nan used to say, life is better when you leave early, and nothing in Bella's life so far has proven this wrong. But perfect timing is hard to achieve. Too early, too eager. Too late, disrespectful. Slightly early says you are in control. Today, Bella knows that she is too early and too eager. She turns in the opposite direction and takes a slow stroll around the block. As she walks, she rehearses what she will say about herself and her work. She is confident, partly because Dorian has already told her he is interested in representing her and showing her work, and partly because she likes Dorian. She thinks he's charming and attractive. She believes he might be a little attracted to her too, and not in an allured kind of way. A girl can sense these things, even one who has had as little experience with the opposite sex as Bella. She's never had a serious boyfriend, but she has had plenty of interest. She knows flirting when she sees it. She could tell by Dorian's tone, how he tilted his head and lowered his lids when he spoke to her the first time they met. She could sense it by how readily he laughed at her jokes and how he went on and on about her photographs. She feels sure she can handle Dorian, but she wants to show that she's professional and prepared. She runs through the facts about the gallery she learned from her online recognizance. Though she has already walked by the gallery 3 times since she moved to New York, she has never ventured inside its doors. Just the quick walk-bys were too exciting to bear. She knows that the gallery is family-run. She may have to meet other family members today. She tries to remember their names. Davis and Ellen Herman, they are the owners and Dorian's parents. Davis is no longer living. Bella found his obituary online, dating back 5 years. Dorian has a brother, Frank, the lawyer of the family. When she rounds the corner to the gallery's glass doors, the receptionist is already unlocking them with a jangle of keys. She is a tall, slender young woman with such a flawless cocoa brown complexion. Bella wonders how she achieves this look. How early would Bella have to rise in the morning to apply the layers of foundation, precise eyeshadow, and pristinely outlined lipstick to arrive so perfectly put together as this aspiring cover girl receptionist? Bella has to assume she is an aspiring cover girl because who else would take all that time and effort? The receptionist even had time to pick up coffee along the way. She's holding the steaming cup of what looks to be the latte Bella should have waited in line for. You must be Bella Fontaine, she says, holding the door open. She is looking at the calendar on her phone. She takes off her heavy navy pea coat and gray and white knit beanie. Yes, Bella says as she follows her inside, swirls of coffee aroma beckoning Bella's regret. Ellen has not quite made it in yet. The woman stores her coat and hat somewhere behind the high reception desk, fixes her hair. Ellen? Bella says, I was expecting to meet Dorian. Oh, shoot. Yes, that's right, the receptionist says. She has opened her laptop and is looking intently at its screen now. Dorian was called out of town at the last minute. You'll meet instead with Ellen, his mother and the owner. Okay, Bella says, because it isn't much else she can say. Dorian didn't tell you? The receptionist says, more as a statement than a question. She is shaking her head like a disappointed parent. I'm so sorry about that. No worries, Bella shrugs, trying to relay confidence, nonchalance, but she is nervous now. She needs to walk. Can I look around? Yes, of course, the receptionist says, then adds, I'm Stephanie. I'm pretty much the only person who keeps time around here. You should know that, she laughs. Okay, got it. I recommend starting in the first room to the left. That's gallery 1. Then work your way around, Stephanie suggests. We have 3 galleries. I would take you on tour, but I gotta get set up for the day. Some things were oddly left undone last night. To the left. Okay, will do, Bella says, appreciative for the direction. She knows from her research that David and Ellen Herman inherited the gallery from the Herman side of the family. It has been in their family for 3 generations. Dorian and Frank are the only children, and Bella is pretty certain part owners too. She's hoping Dorian has as much authority as he implied when they met. Maybe he has more than his mother, who is taking the appointment in his place. She strolls through the first gallery. The walls are covered with mixed media canvases, part collage, part oil landscapes. Bella reads the poster at the entrance of the gallery, introducing the artist. She's Haitian. In her picture, she looks to be in her mid-40s. Bella has never heard of her. The next room has sculptures, a series of orbs, clear with swirling colors inside, mostly blue and purple oceans. The accent lights hit them just right and they glow. Bella stands in the middle of the room and takes in the view of all the sculptures. She counts 12. The room is quiet and she decides to accept the peaceful vibe of the orbs and the ocean. She takes 3 deep breaths. Her heartbeat seems to slow. She feels calmer. You can do this, Bella, she assures herself. 3 more breaths. The last room holds miniature portraits, paintings in black and white, some in silhouette and some with the subject facing forward. The eyes are painted in one-dimensional white with no pupils. They look ghoulish, haunting. Bella tries to imagine who would want something so disturbing in their home. She wishes she could ask Stephanie what they mean, why their eyes are white blanks. She's betting it's some brilliant explanation about race and gentrification or some such. She resolves to come back when she can find out. She is she is concerned now that there are no photographs anywhere. She is not sure her pieces will fit in here. She doesn't know enough to know if this matters. The last gallery leads her to a back hallway. She passes an office. The door is open. Miss Fontaine, says the woman behind the desk, please come in. Bella enters the office, and the 70-something Jewish woman stands up from her chair. She recognizes Ellen from the gallery's social media feeds. Short and thin with shoulder-length, salt and pepper hair, so curly it's almost an afro. Stephanie enters the office right behind Bella. This is a photographer Dorian is so excited about, Stephanie says. And I see why, the older woman says. Aren't you lovely? I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, dear. She extends her hand. Ellen Herman. So nice to meet you, Mrs. Herman, Bella says in her most formal voice. I was not aware you were coming in today, Ellen says. Did you bring some prints, a contact sheet, anything to show me? Bella is surprised and befuddled by this request. In all her planning, she didn't think to bring anything to show. Dorian asked her last week to email more examples of her earlier work. That was the second batch of photos she'd sent. He's had her CV for weeks. She figured they had what they needed. I can pull up my website, Bella says. She hears the uncertainty in her own voice. She knows she sounds weak and unprepared. But then Stephanie steps in to save her. I forwarded the email of her photographs as soon as Dorian asked you to cover for her, Ellen. I also printed out some contact sheets. They are in that green folder on your credenza, as you requested. Stephanie does not hide her annoyance. Ah, well, why didn't you say so? Ellen says. She makes an exaggerated scowl. At Stephanie, and then smiles and winks at Bella. Stephanie walks out of the room, not bothering to respond. Bella hears Stephanie's loud exhalation as she moves down the hall. Ellen swivels her chair around towards the credenza behind her desk. She picks up something, the folder, Bella presumes. She cannot know for sure because Ellen's chair has a high back that obscures her movement once she's turned away. She stays this way, her back to Bella's, for several minutes, leafing through papers. I don't see your resume where you have shown before. I don't see on your resume where you have shown before. Bella is relieved to be staring at the back of Ellen's chair. I placed the first in the Kleinberg Photo Fest in Toronto. I participated in several student art shows at UCLA and several local shows and festivals in Los Angeles. The list of those are on the last page of my CV, Bella offers. After several minutes, Ellen turns back to face Bella, who can already tell that Ellen is not impressed with what she's seen. Yes, I see. The Kleinberg is your only exposure outside of Los Angeles, she asked. Well, I was featured on emergingart.com, which is a website that has an international audience, Bella says with confidence, though she is not at all certain. The website, which included some of her photos for a Black History Month online show, actually has followers outside of the US. Since it's a website, she figured it can't be much of a stretch. Ellen asks, to which competitions have you submitted recently? Are you showing anywhere currently? Do you have any reviews to share with me? I do not have any current submissions or exhibitions, Bella says. I have the judge's notes from the Kleinberg and the write-up in the Toronto Sun. Ellen goes through Bella's 3-page CV, lifting page after page, as if something suitable might magically appear if she continues to shuffle through. Bella wants to shout, this is it. It's all I've got. No magical missing page. But she just sits straighter and awaits Ellen's next question. Ellen finally sets the CV down on her desk and picks up the contract sheet. She draws out the word, have a very sensitive eye, my dear, but I'm not sure your work is a good fit for us. Ellen pauses, pulls her chair in closer, squares her shoulders. In fact, I am sure it is not. Even though she was telegraphing her displeasure from the moment Bella sat down in her office, Bella is not prepared for Ellen's proclamation. Dorian had indicated that she was in, that her series was already on their exhibition calendar. This show was the reason she convinced herself and her father that she was ready to make the move to New York. She thought she was coming in today to sign a contract. What is your day job? Ellen interrupts Bella's panic, effectively cutting it short. I do weddings, Bella says, swallowing hard, and events. I photograph events. Oh, Ellen says, well, splendid. Perhaps we can add you to our go-to list of event photographers. This is Ellen's consolation offering. As I said, you have a sensitive eye and a gift with light, and I imagine you're affordable. Bella is stunned. Is too stunned to say thank you. She tries to smile to acknowledge the compliment, even though it's packaged in a but you are not quite good enough wrapping. Ellen stands, extends her hand again and says, thank you so much. We have your contact info. I'll stop there.
Oh gosh, very heartbreaking. Okay, now, all right, and you're gonna read her future.
Is there enough time? Is
Sure,
that okay?
sure, that's fine.
Okay. This is a then chapter, Bella's Voice, chapter 8, Nan and the Fall. We paused to survey the blossoms, seeking just the right candidates for the Sunday dinner table bouquet. It's warm, but the late morning sky is overcast. I take a deep breath in. The air is humid, still, and thick with the smell of soil and Estee Lauder perfume. I'm holding Nan's hand when we cross the patches of lawn to the garden path. The dew on the grass makes the tips of our shoes wet, and the damp pebbles on the path clump together to form slippery mounds around our steps. We'll cut some Dutch iris, Nan says, stopping in front of the cluster of tall, mature flowers. Nan looks them over, assessing them. Do you see the Dutch iris, Bella? Nan asks. Yes, ma'am, I answer, confused by the question. Of course I see the irises right in front of us. These are the clusters I helped Mr. Blackshear prune last spring when the bulk of the older plants threatened to spill over onto the path. We were following Nan's orders. She could not abide, she'd said, this kind of disorder, leggy stems and spent blossoms bending beyond their borders. I don't say, of course I see them out loud, but perhaps my expression does. No, Nan says, I mean, have you really looked at the Dutch iris to truly see them, dear one? First, you must close your eyes. Nan closes her eyes and turns her face up to the sky, just as the clouds clear and the garden is bathed in the sun's commanding light. She smiles into the warmth and holds her breath. Do you feel a breeze of any kind? She asks. No, ma'am, I say. Now my eyes are closed. My face turns skyward too. I only see bright orange through my eyelids. I'm concentrating, but the air in the garden is stock still. So then, Nan says, look at the irises now. I open my eyes and focus them on the patch of blossoms. I see that they are swaying ever so slightly and haphazardly, some leaning north and then south, some west and then east, like a crowd of teenagers moving to their own beat. Are they doing that on their own? I ask. Yes, they are speaking to us, Bella, letting us know that they see us too. Perhaps this late in the season, it's their last dance. It is late fall and the blooms are sparse, but this variety is a colorful mix of blue, lavender, and purple. Thank you, beautiful ladies, for allowing us this gift, Nan says. She does a short curtsy, her arms outstretched. The dancing irises seem to sway a touch more, this way and that, an acknowledgement of Nan's gesture. She turns and reaches for the step stool she uses when she is ready to take cuttings. Who else will we cut today, Nanny? I want to thank someone, I say, enjoying this ritual of honoring the flowers before they become our table dressing. Just the irises, Nan says. They alone will go well with your mother's dinner. My mother is making smothered pork chops with purple cabbage coleslaw, a family favorite. Yes, but can we put them in your yellow vase, the one you usually save for the Midas touch tulips? At 12, I've developed an interest in the dinner table flower arrangements, usually Nan's only Sunday dinner task. Well, now, dear, you know that very special vase is only for my very special tulips. Nan pauses, reconsider. But yes, we can. That will be a beautiful combination. The Midas touch, so bright yellow they look like shiny gold coins, are Nan's favorite tulip variety, but the bulbs aren't even planted yet. She lets them stay extra long in the refrigerator since the Southern California cold is not always cold enough to result in a hardy springtime display. I decide the iridescent yellow vase is too pretty to ignore for the entire season. I run to the west side of the garden, behind the garage, to the potting shed to grab the shears. I race back. Nan turns and catches me mid-sprint. Do not run with those shears, Bella. You know better, she says, with a sharpness to her tone that stops me in my tracks. I stand on the path and hold up the shears to show that I'm at least holding them properly. Blades down, handles up. Nan sees that I have grabbed the wrong ones. No, no, dear. Get the pruners with the red handle, she calls out. I return to the shed, and just as I exchange one tool for the other, Nan yells out, Bella! I turn, but I do not see her. She is not where she was. She calls out again, Bella? This time it is a question, and then a moan that barely escapes her throat. I drop the prunes and run to the path. She is down, lying on her side and holding her left thigh with both hands. I run to her, screaming for my father. When I look up to the house, I see that my mother is already through the sliding glass doors and standing on the veranda. Her eyes are big, round circles, and her face even more ashen than my grandmother's. She is not moving. Nan screams in pain. With every scream, I yell out for my father, who finally pushes past the statue that is my mother and runs to us. Edie, call 911. Excuse me. Edie, call 911, my father says. Edie! He's trying to break through to my mother, who finally runs into the house. Dad and I are listening to hear if she picks up the phone in the family room, but we do not hear the sounds that we should, the lifting of the receiver or her voice, and she does not return. After what feels like an eternity, Bernard appears at the door. Bern, go see if your mother is calling 911. Dad says as he sits down behind Nan and eases her back onto his thighs. She is still gripping her leg. There now, Miriam, try not to move. Let's just sit tight. I'm sitting on my haunches beside her. I touch her shoulder, but every time she cries out, I draw my hand back. Did you see what happened, Bella? My father asks. No, I was at the potting shed. I tripped David over the blasted stool, Nan says. Her voice is a mixture of disgust and anguish, her breathing labored, like she's been running laps. I'm feeling a little queasy, David, Nan says between gasps. Breathe, Miriam, Dad says. Deep breaths in and out, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Slow, slow. Nan closes her eyes and follows Dad's instructions. She seems calmer for a moment, but with the slightest move, she shrieks in pain. Now I'm feeling queasy too. I take in gulps of air. We hear the sirens in the distance. Bernard appears in the veranda. They're coming, he says. Go out front, show them back, my father says, and get your mother.
Oh, lovely. Very exciting.
Lots of things going on in both
Lots of
time
things going
periods.
on. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, we look forward to more of your work. And of
Thank you.
course, in the podcast below, we'll have our links to your sites and your book. And hopefully, people will read it and enjoy it. And yeah, and we look forward to your second one. So,
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
all right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarage.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.